Hello everyone and welcome back to Dev Portal, where we will simplify backend and system concept for you so that you can become a better developer. In this video, we are starting a brand new series, Linux for the developers. Whether you are a backend engineer, front-end developer, or a full-stack dev, at some point of time, we all have dealt with this Linux system, especially when we are deploying or debugging our application on server. So first, let's discuss what we are going to cover today in this video. First, we will see what is Linux and why every developer should know about it. And then we will see the key difference between Windows system and Linux system and how it will impact our daily development work. So let's get started. So first, what exactly is Linux? Linux is basically an open source operating system kernel created back in 1991. When I say kernel, it means this is the heart of the operating system. It is the part that will directly communicate with the hardware and it will manage CPU, memory and devices. So to understand this in a better way, let's try to understand first that how our Windows and Mac OS system work. So what will happen when we try to access any application, let's say Chrome or VS Code, the user interface layer take our input, that is the mouse click or keyboard action as an input, and pass it to the application layer. And then this application request will be sent forwarded to the operating system. For example, to read a file, connect to the internet or use some RAM. And then this request which OS has got passes to the kernel, which is act as a bridge between hardware and the software. So the kernel is what that will directly interact with the CPU, memory, disk and other hardware components, and it will return back to the response in form of chain, that it will return to the OS and then OS return to the application, and from application it will come to the user. So this is how normal flow work. So now let's try to understand that same thing how it is working in Linux. In Linux, the structure is more modular and open. The control will go from user to application, then from application to system libraries, then Linux kernel and then hardware. The Linux kernel is the one which will handle all communication with the hardware, just like Windows and Mac OS kernel are also doing. But unlike Windows and Mac OS, Linux give developer more control over every layer which is present. We can view everything which is present in the system. We can view running processes, control memory usage, we can change the permission of the files and folder, and we can do configuration in the from the terminal itself. So in simple terms, if I say Windows and Mac OS, what they will do, they will hide the internal layer for the user convenience. But while Linux is exposed to the developers, there is a transparency and more control over it. So now let's discuss that why as a developer I need to learn Linux. So the first thing is that the most of the servers in the world run on Linux, especially the cloud servers which are hosted on AWS, GCP and Azure. And if you have ever used Docker and Kubernetes for your project, then indirectly you are working with Linux. And whenever we will deploy our backend APIs, we will make our build for the React project, or even if we move our microservices, they are also hosted on some Linux server only. So even if you are not a DevOps engineer, understanding basic Linux command and structure will make you a far better and more confident developer. You can think of Linux as an invisible engine which will run almost everywhere in the software world. So till now we have discussed what is Linux and why as a developer we need to learn that. Now let's try to understand the basic difference between Windows and Linux system. So as we know, Windows is owned by Microsoft, so it is paid. I need to pay if I want to use that OS. But Linux, as I told, it is an open source, so it is free to use. So I just need to download or install the OS and then I will be able to use it. I no need to pay for that operating system. Second thing is that the Windows provide rich interface to us, but Linux is a command line terminal where I need to write the command for the execution. And if I talk about access wise, then only one user can access the Windows system, as I need to log in and then I will be able to use it as a user. But that is not the thing with Linux. Multiple user can access the same system and they can do their work. So these are the basic difference between Windows system and Linux system. Now let's talk about the developer perspective. In Windows, as we know, we mostly rely on the GUI interface which it will provide. We can open our file explorer, we can do copy, paste, drag and drop everything. But in Linux, same thing we need to do with the help of commands, which might feel different at first, but once you get used to it, you will get to understand the power of the Linux. For example, in Windows, if I want to copy the file, what I need to do, I need to go to that path, I need to right click, then I need to click on copy icon, and then I need to go to the destination path. and then I need to click on paste icon. This is how it is working in Windows or macOS. But same thing we can do in Linux with the help of single command, that is cp command. After cp, I need to mention the path where that file is present and the path where I want to paste that file. That's it. Same job will be done instantly. Once we will learn these basic commands, we will realize that how powerful and efficient Linux is. Let's say if you want to see the files and folder which is present under that particular folder, for that we need to no need to go to that particular folder. We can just do the ls command and it will print out all the list, all the files and folder which is present under that directory. In Linux we will say directory for the folder. So this is about developer perspective. Now let's talk about one point regarding system architecture. As we know that Windows provide the rich GUI interface, so it will make the user experience better, because as a user I cannot learn every command. But if we talk about Linux, then Linux is designed for the control and transparency purpose, so that it can provide more control to the developers. So with the help of Linux, we can literally modify the system files, automate our tasks, and fine tune everything using the terminal itself. So that's it for today's video. Let's quickly recap that what we have learned today. Linux is an open source operating system which is used everywhere from server to Android. Developers should learn it because it is the foundation of Docker, cloud and deployment environments. And unlike Windows, it is the terminal based system where multiple users can work, and it is extremely powerful for the automation as well. So that's it for today's video. In our next video, we will dive into Linux distribution like Ubuntu, Fedora or CentOS if you have ever heard. And we will also explore the Linux file system structure as well, so that you can understand exactly how things is organized inside the Linux system. If you found this video helpful, make sure to like, share and subscribe to Dev Portal so that you don't miss the part 2 of this tutorial series. And I will see you in my next video.